I'm John Yarrington, CEO of the Performance Marketing Institute, a 501c6 not-for-profit trade association dedicated to protecting, promoting, and advancing the direct-to-consumer and performance-driven marketing industries. And on behalf of the entire PDMI family, it's my pleasure to welcome you back for another fun-filled and exciting episode of the PDMI Take 20. As a reminder, the PDMI Take 20 is a quick-hitting roundtable discussion led by industry experts on trending topics, all in roughly 20 minutes. Today, we're joined by three absolutely amazing industry friends, including Ariel Benz of BB3 Advertising, John Carnett of Marketing Maven, and Brad Stewart of Division D. And together, we'll be taking a look at the changing and dynamic role of influencers in the performance marketing landscape. However, before we get started, please allow me to do a little housekeeping. If you'd like to ask a question, and we encourage you to do so, please use the questions tab located in your control panel. Also, please note, you're welcome to ask questions throughout today's conversation. However, we will hold all replies to the end of our discussion. Alrighty, folks, with that said, it's my pleasure to introduce today's moderator. He doesn't read the playbook, he wrote it. He's the fearless Chris Foster. Chris is the chief evangelist at PCM Integration, a direct marketing agency located in Clearwater, Florida. In addition to his day job, Chris is the chairperson of the PDMI Brand Response Council and the host of the podcast Men Folk Journeys. As always, Chris, it's a pleasure to have you here today. Thank you so much. And for the 139th time, because today is the 139th episode, take it away, my friend. Take it away.
Thank you, Johnny. I got that, and what a beautiful introduction. What a beautiful set of panelists. We're so excited to have everyone here. We are going to dive in to influencer marketing. Now, look, influencer marketing has now become part of the mainstream marketing channel mix, just like social media, direct mail, broadcast, digital, and hundreds of other outreach avenues. It's no longer in the periphery or the edge or a fringe. It's baked in. It's additional incremental spend and energy for the teams. But for a brand, that means more exposure in a brand new way. It also means either stacking on the current mix of budget and spend or replacing or taking budget from another channel. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Let's just do some data point though. From a trend perspective, most major brands have already jumped into influencer marketing. So some stats, a US creator ad spending is projected to reach 37 billion, that's billion with a B, growing about 4 times faster than the broader media industry, right? So it's definitely a place that's growing. Nearly 70% of marketers at companies with 100 or more employees expect influencer marketing to be a part of their overall mix. Again, it's coming into the fold, and the teams are now expected to pull it in to their operations. And 86% of consumers make at least one influencer-inspired purchase each year. 86%. I don't know if you can say that for social media. You might, but that's a significant amount of people being influenced by someone else to make that purchase. Now, it's not just confined to B2C marketing. B2B marketers are also learning how to harness the power of influencers. 85% of US B2B marketers use influencer marketing in their strategy, with about 40% of that influencer content being educational. For B2B, that's so important to give folks that know, like, credibility and trust before they engage with the sales team. So it's here, it's present, and it absolutely needs to be part of your marketing mix in 2026. So the question you might be asking yourself if you haven't done it is, well, how do I do it best? And how do I get started? And that's such a great question because we have the people who can answer that on this panel to help answer that with others. We've got these masters of our craft and these experts in burgeoning influencer marketing space. So we're going to do a quick introduction. I'm going to start, like John said, I am the chief evangelist at Postcard Mania and PCM Integrations. Postcard Mania is the #1 direct marketing platform for small businesses, and PCM Integrations is the #1 direct mail platform for sales organizations and mid-sized businesses. So, Brad, let's start with you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Brad Stewart. I'm the Senior Director of Influencer Marketing at Division D. We are a full-service digital media partner. We're focused on helping brands drive measurable results across programmatic, search, social, and, of course, influencer marketing. At Division D, I lead the influencer strategy and partnership team, so executing influencer campaigns across a mix of industries. We work across a very wide mix, including travel, CPG, food and beverage, but also categories like nonprofit, healthcare, and energy. So big list of different verticals there. But really at the core, I mean, the core part of my job is just helping brands build creative programs that are effectively driving those results that are aligning with those overarching business goals. So excited to be here and look forward to the conversation today.
Thanks. Ariel.
Thanks for having me. So I am the founder and CEO of BB3 Advertising. We are a performance-based agency. We focus on omni-channel for challenger brands as well as D2C. We have offices in both the US and the UK, and we have made the Inc. 5000 list for fastest growing companies in America the last 2 years consecutively, in part due to our influencer growth in-house.
Hey, congratulations on that. High five, Ariel. That is fantastic. John.
It's nice to meet all of you. I'm John Carnett, the Chief Technology Officer at Marketing Maven. We're an award-winning integrated marketing agency. Our work spans PR, market research, influencer marketing, social media, digital advertising, kind of a broader integrated marketing strategy as well. I've been at Marketing Maven for 15 years now. I would say that my role is a little cross-functional. So I oversee the technology strategy, some of the internal systems, the AI-enabled processes, and really a lot of the operational infrastructure here that helps our teams execute more efficiently. So when I look at influencer marketing, I tend to look at how we can build better systems around it, from research and creator vetting to kind of like content amplification and measurement. And happy to be here.
Fantastic. And John, we're going to start with you. You've been there for 15 years. So you started when you were 12. So that's awesome that you were able to do that in your middle school years. So clearly Marketing Maven has embraced influencer marketing as part of the overall services. You just talked now about pulling technology in, which I think is pretty interesting to try to systematize it and operationalize it. What does that method look like to you now on a day-to-day basis when you actually have to manage influencers and the data and the analytics that go along with it?
Yeah, influencer marketing has had like a lot of success here. When we look at influencer marketing and how we bring technology into it, a lot of it is how we identify the correct influencers for our clients, and really kind of what our clients' audience personas are. So, great example recently is one of our clients, X Chair, which is actually the chair that I'm sitting on right now. When we were looking for influencers there, we didn't really look for just influencers with the biggest audiences. We actually started with market research, and that's where we use a lot of our proprietary tools to scrape audience insights, find out where conversations are happening. So through that process, we found a lot of different customer personas that our clients really either didn't fully recognize or really prioritize before. And it's really important because it gave us a clear picture of who we needed to reach for our clients and what type of creators would be credible for those audiences. From there, we identified the actual influences who has audiences that match those personas, and contracted them to make authentic content and then amplify that content with paid media behind it. So the influencer content really gave us the trust and relatability with the audience, and then the paid amplification gave us the scale. So it moved it from awareness into performance. The campaign, I think, like when we executed it, had around 18 influencers that we used. They developed, I think, like over 40 pieces of content for us, and we had about like $100,000 ad budget, and we generated over $1 million in sales for our client in less than 4 months. So the big lesson really is that influencer marketing works best when you start with research, just not looking at follower count.
That's fantastic. Congratulations on that. So that's a 10x return on ad spend, if my math is right. And I love that strategy of using the market research, the data, the analytics to actually find who would be the right fit folks and kind of optimizing your search before just kind of blindly groping to find out which influencers would be best. So Brad, you mentioned that you're senior director of influencer marketing. Well, I don't think that position even existed 5 years ago. So clearly Division D, as it started to look at its suite of services and expansion, decided that influencer marketing was important enough to have a senior director, an entire leader of a whole team, not just as some kind of side service that they might add if they could. So when did Division D decide and make a commitment to influencer marketing?
Yeah, so I actually joined in 2019, so going on 7 years now. That was something that was really driven just by the demand and the requests from the clients
Oh, wow.
that were coming in. So just to provide some context, like I was actually hired specifically to build the program for Division
Oh, you
D.
were?
Yeah, yeah.
Cool.
So coming in here, I mean, I guess taking a step back too. So Division D's been around since the mid 2000s, and with that, I mean, to be successful and to survive in digital for that long, you really just have to adapt. You have to evolve as the ecosystem does, and as consumer behaviors change, you have to adapt with it and provide solutions to the advertisers. So really, I mean, it's about just matching that demand, and it's about listening to what the market is asking for and providing a solution there. So the core need is just, again, kind of no different from what marketers have always been looking for and what advertisers have always been looking for, and that's an opportunity to connect with their audience. It's just a different channel, and it's more specialized, and it requires different investments and different resources in achieving that. But the core goal there is to just continue to connect the advertisers with their audiences through an effective medium. And so yeah, it's just demand driven by the advertisers themselves, by our clients ourselves. It's as influencer continue to mature, clients start asking about it. At a certain point, you realize, hey, there's an opportunity here. Let's invest in it and let's build it out. So yeah, 2019 is when I came on board. We built out the program in-house, and we've been running it ever since. So yeah.
Well, congratulations on that. And I apologize for my comment about 5 years. I didn't quite think that 7 years. So clearly, I apologize for the misstep. So I guess the question I would ask is, congratulations on being hired to actually build it from the ground up. How many folks do you have actually on your team?
Yeah, we're still, I mean, a pretty lean team for the influencer side specifically. So we've got about 10 people on the team as a whole, split between strategy and kind of more the partnership side.
You have 10 people. You realize, of course, that most digital marketing agencies don't even have 10 people in their entire org.
So that's still a small portion of the org as a whole, but we're growing and looking to continue to become a larger and larger share of that.
That's fantastic. I want to ask you a little bit later about some of the performance that you've seen in some of those campaigns, but I want to jump in for Ariel. So Ariel, when you talked about what BB3 does, you focused on challenger brands, right? Which I think is pretty interesting. I think, and I'd love you to talk about this more, that influencer marketing is a really good channel for challenger brands who may not have the budget to go toe-to-toe with larger brands in linear television or big, huge broadcast media campaigns. Can you talk about that nice fit between influencer and challenger brands?
Yeah, so to Brad's point earlier, having to adapt and be nimble with the marketplace brought us into the space because we had people that couldn't sort of go toe to toe with the bigger brands and outspend them in the in the traditional mediums. And influencer really gave us the opportunity to piggyback on the credibility of influencers that essentially gives us a warm audience as opposed to that cold audience that we're using when we're going through paid media or TV or CT or any other mediums that we do. So it's kind of an equalizer, not just in the credibility, also in the content machine that it creates. It allows us to really lower the cost of production and all kinds of other things, but it allows us to really outfit the brand. So instead of having to go for the biggest influencer with the biggest audience and all of those types of like the methodology that we would normally use if we were going the more traditional route, we can outfit them by finding the audience that really is the core audience that we're going through research tools as we've been discussing, and really tap into that authenticity, don't love that word, but the credibility of the influencer, and warming up that audience for us, and that leads to better conversions. And then, as John mentioned earlier, we then put paid dollars behind that, but we're using a warm audience, we're using recognizable faces in some cases, or we're whitelisting and we're using their actual audience and expanding on that. So there's a lot of different tactics that we can use that the other mediums that we have just didn't have. So it's given us a little bit of that leveling the playing field in a way that we didn't have before.
I think that is a marvelous phrase where it becomes the great equalizer. What's interesting is the last X number of years, e-commerce sites have become kind of a democratizing effect on retail brands, where if I'm selling jeans, I can finally compete with Levi's and the Gap because I have my own e-commerce site and I've got a niche audience, and I can really home in on the audience that loves my jeans and steal share where I couldn't, 10, 15 years ago. With an influencer campaign, you can do something like that where you can compete. I guess, when you were talking, John, about the ways that you cultivated and vetted influencers, do you see now that there are more influencers who want to influence than there are spots available, so that the vetting and the process and the culling of and the nurturing of the creators is actually in the agency's favor?
Yeah, that's a great question. Particularly around influencer vetting. There are, especially with the TikTok and a lot of the new social media platforms coming out, different people that amass followers really quickly. But when we look at influencer vetting, we really need to look at it in kind of different layers. So with us, usually the first layer that we look at is the audience fit of that influencer. So is the influencer actually reaching the people that the brand needs to reach? We don't want people with just a large audience. It has to be the right audience for the client. Second is outside of audience fit is content fit. So does the influencer's content style make sense for the brand? Can they naturally talk about the product or service and not just make it feel like a scripted ad? It's really that authenticity with them that we want and we look for. And then engagement quality. So follower count does matter, yeah, but that's really not enough. We would rather have a micro influencer with amazing engagement than influencers with millions of followers who get a few hundred likes, right?
Sure.
So we want to look at the comments, the interaction of their audience, the consistency of the posts, as well as audience engagement, and whether their audience actually seems to connect with them. And that engagement is super important for having impactful campaigns. And then finally, I think we look at kind of like from a brand safety and professionalism of the influencer. So has influencers posted anything that could create risk for our clients? Do the influencers understand timelines, approvals, disclosure requirements, usage rights, which, a lot of them don't.
Ariel's shaking her head. She's like, they do not, they do not.
Yep. So yeah, we really want to make sure that our clients are protected and it's as risk-free as you can get. So the creators that make the cut are usually the ones that have the right audience, they have strong content, real engagement, brand alignment, and the ability to work professionally with our team. And the influencers that create problems, they usually don't get contracted again.
Sure, and they go away. So what's interesting to me is that there's almost like a professionalization that's happened with this, where influencers are figuring out that it's no longer this freelance. It's not enough to sit in front of a blender and talk and think that you're going to look cool and have the right camera angle, but to actually take it professionally, be serious about it by checking all those boxes. It seems to me that quality over quantity is probably an easier scale to dip into, where it's the quality of the engagement, it's the quality of the content, the quality of the person itself, that authentic connection with the brand. That makes a lot of sense. So now, Brad, I guess a question for you in Division D. You've got so many other marketing services that Division D has. How do you then, beyond just amplifying a post, integrate those influences into your other social and digital channels for your clients?
Yeah, so I would say really comes down into two buckets there. One is really around connecting the audiences across channels, and that's the primary bucket. But then the second is just maximizing the value of that content for the brand as well. And maybe that's not in the paid realm, maybe that's more on the owned side. But talking about that first piece, it's around making sure that the content is worked into the broader consumer journey instead of treating influencer like just this standalone siloed project. So it's focusing on the consistency and messaging across those channels. I mean, with what is available from targeting you know, if you just take a step back for a second and look at just like the social side of it, the way that we can interweave and connect the brand social, paid social and organic social approaches with influencer marketing and the audiences, where you can create buckets of these audiences that can be reached sequentially from, okay, we know that they've seen a brand ad and now we're going to serve them an influencer ad. And now that we know they've seen that influencer ad, we're going to try to get them to the website with a brand ad. And now, you know, take it beyond social, once they've made it to the website and you have the ability to retarget, now you can take that into consideration and serve them very thoughtful content that continues to pursue that consumer journey as well. So it's really about understanding that consumer journey first and foremost, and connecting it all with the influencer process and making it very smart and intentional and thoughtful as to how you do that. And then the second piece there is around leveraging that full potential of the content itself. So it's actually taking that content, as John alluded to there. I mean, it's really powerful content that has a big performance based on just like the style and the authenticity of that content. And so utilizing that beyond just like the social post and then boosting, it's also taking this content, and for a lot of brands, this is their top performing content. So taking this content, and my lights switched off, it wasn't moving enough there. So taking this content and building it into other tactics. So this could be landing pages, shopping pages. I know a lot of advertisers have talked about the pressure that they get from retailers to have more content on their shopping pages. So utilizing that, using it for email. So it's really about more cohesive experience and taking full advantage of it. And it all comes back to, as well, to Ariel, you mentioned lowering the cost of production. That's a huge piece of this. Once you have these assets, it's taking advantage of them. And then the usage rights. I mean, it all comes back to the usage rights. You got to get the rights for all of this. And this is something that I would say, to Uriel's point, half of the group doesn't quite understand usage rights and the other fully understands, and they are going to get every last penny for it. So it's pretty funny, the dichotomy that you have between the two groups.
That's excellent. Yeah, like we talked about earlier, the professional class of influencers, I think, is going to move up. My hunch is that I would not be surprised if there's a college course in some marketing program in some business school somewhere that's about how to be influencer, or the influencer professional class, and that type of stuff. I'm sure that there's a YouTube or TikTok video on becoming a professional influencer. Ariel, I will ask you, does influencer marketing get additional budget from a brand, or does it take budget from other channels?
So in a perfect world, it gets its own budget, but that's something that we always discuss at nauseum with our clients, because we're omni-channel, we do everything from TV all the way through. Oftentimes when they come to us, we are looking at their media from a media agnostic standpoint to determine where they should be spending budget. So not just, hey, influencer is great, we should have it. It's, do you have your socials in order? Do you have your organic? Do you have your paid? Do you have your website in good order? And we look at everything, and we go through that checklist before we assign which medium we're putting with them. And that's where sort of that influencer piece comes in so strong.
Sure, that makes a lot of sense to me. I guess one final question that I'll ask, and then I'm going to turn it over to John, because we're already 11:25. Talk to me about B2B marketing. Who's got a good example of B2B influencer success stories? Bueller?
I would say from our side, it's kind of looking, we really like B2B because it looks different than traditional consumer influencer marketing.
Okay.
So the influencer for the B2B side is usually not a lifestyle creator or a celebrity. It could be someone like an analyst or an industry expert or a founder. And for us, for B2B, we don't really call them influencers. We call them KOLs, or key opinion leaders. And the goals of those campaigns is less about the instant purchase and more about credibility, education, and trust. That's where B2B influencer campaigns really win. And I would say it's not really about how famous you are either. Sometimes the most valuable person of these campaigns is someone that only has 500 followers that really trust them, but it's the 500 exact decision makers that your brand needs to reach.
Sure. That's wonderful. That's a great nugget. Thank you very much, John. All righty, I'm going to toss it off to John Yarrington, who's got some questions. I'm going to take this moderator hat I'm going to take it off. I'm going to find John. He's right below me. I'm going to put that moderator hat right on John. You got it? Yes, perfect timing.
Fits good, brother. Fits real good. Thank you. All right,
It's
we got
great.
a couple questions from the audience to share with you guys.
Yeah.
Are micro
so
and mid-tier?
Johnny, hold on one second. I just wanted to say he's going to take questions from the audience. I'm going to jet out of here. So you're going to take it from here, Johnny. Thank you so much.
All right, man. Take care of yourself. Travel well.
Bye.
All righty. Now that we lost the dead weight, Chris, he's holding us back, guys. Now we're really ready to rock and roll. All right. Are micro and mid-tier influencer outperforming celebrity creators in performance marketing today? So the question is, are the smaller guys outperforming the celebrity guys in today's marketplace?
I think it depends on what the goal is. And I think that that's something that we talk about a lot with clients as well, is your macro, your really big celebrities, they still give that permission to enter the cultural conversation, right? So they have a place and they do incredible brand lift and all of these types. There's a real value in that we don't want to take away from. But what we see most of our clients where we play our sandbox is a lot more in that micro and nano, where we know that we can get almost that e-commerce affiliate, cost per acquisition goal in, because not only are they inexpensive, but they also are incredibly engaged with their audiences. We talk about this often. A mega influencer probably never responds to DMs themselves. They probably don't even post the content themselves. Whereas your nano or your smaller micro influencers, they're having a two-way conversation with their audiences. It's a completely different relationship. So therefore, again, tapping into that credibility and into that warm audience, when you're working with those that have that two-way relationship with their audience, they're going to have a better sell-through rate because they're automatically already buying into it by following that person. And so therefore, you're an extension of that buy-in that they already have in place.
Yeah, I'll definitely second everything Ariel said, and I would add one additional piece there too, is that the micros offer diversity as well, and that's diversity in the niche audiences that you can reach. So for much more approachable investment, you can get access to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 plus dozens of audiences, niche audiences that are highly tapped into, like Ariel said there. So it offers a lot of opportunities to also test which segments are going to work most effectively and optimize accordingly from there, versus one big investment in a lot of ways can pose a lot of risk because it's a lot of money for one option that either will work really well or it won't, and there's not much room for in between there.
Completely agree. I think when it really comes down to like what the objective of the campaign is. So if it's like broad visibility, celebrities definitely make sense. But if it's believable product education or niche audience engagement, as Brad was saying, micro influencers are definitely more efficient.
Excellent feedback. Thank you, you three. Really appreciate that. Let's move to a question about brands and contracts. What are the biggest mistakes you see brands making when negotiating influencer partnerships and compensation structures? Or is there issues?
I would say understanding the usage is one that we've kind of touched on already. I think that's one that's really important to know going into it, what you want from the content, making sure that you're clear, making sure that you're upfront, and making sure that that's communicated thoroughly. I think there's a lot of things to consider, and I think there's a lot of things that are important, but I think that's one that can get missed pretty easily, and it can be a bit of a headache to resolve if there's just that disconnect initially. There's also the case that, you can always go back and get content usage a la carte, and that's always a great way to approach it too. You save some money by not purchasing up front, but just having that conversation and engaging in that topic, I would say is one that I think is, I wouldn't necessarily say it's an issue, but it's one that can be really easily prevented by effective communication.
Definitely. I think the other thing, other than usage rights, because to your point, Brad, you can't always go back depending on if something really performs and get those usage rights later. But the other area that I know that we have a lot of back and forth with on is how much education and information to share with the influencers. Increasingly authenticity, I feel, is something that you can almost script. There's a lot of information you can share, and I think that brands oftentimes want to essentially script influencers, which can really backfire because you are not utilizing them to their full potential, which is really capitalizing on their own voice. So making sure that you get that balance between, first of all, videos and not lots of text, because one thing we have found is reading a lot of content is not the ideal for these types of proposals, but giving them some sample videos, really calling out those 2 or 3 USPs that you want them to focus on, and really allowing them to take it and make it their own so that you get the benefit, or else it just comes off as an ad in their content and it doesn't resonate.
Yep. I think one thing that brands really struggle with is not getting specific enough upfront. So, you know, Brad and Ariel both saying like those usage rights super important. A lot of brands, I think they believe they're just buying a post. And if it's not in the agreement that you have with the influencer, that's going to create problems later. So yeah, it's just not being clear. Also on like category exclusivity. So if you have an influencer that you're working with and they're promoting your brand one week and then a direct competitor the next week, it can weaken a campaign pretty quickly.
Thank you guys, appreciate that an awful lot. You know, it wouldn't be at PDMI Take 20 in 2026 without someone from the audience asking something about AI. So I've got to ask you guys an AI question. AI is absolutely everywhere in all facets of performance marketing, including social media ads. Have you looked into AI for influencer campaigns? What does AI mean to this world of influencers? What's your position and thought on that?
I think that AI, there's a lot of people moving into AI influencers, and the reality is that we don't know it when we see it. And I oftentimes tell my team we may even be contracting ones that we don't know, because they're out there and they're working the same way as every other influencer. We try not to work with AI influencers, especially because we're doing demonstration and reviews, and we really want that to be a human being. I think you can get into a lot of hot water with that as well if you don't follow the right protocol. But where there is a use for AI in influencer marketing, which is obviously still a gray area that people are dabbling in, is it is a content machine, but it is not influence, right? So an influencer has an audience they build, they communicate with, they are looked upon either for their sense of style or for their knowledge of AI, and they're followed for that reason. Whereas when you're working with AI content, you're kind of feeding your content machine. So they're two very different ways to go about it. And again, really focusing on that legal perspective, because you do have to shout out if you're using AI when you're doing testimonials or any sort of comment that says, I used this. We also find the AI for, makeup demos probably not your most ideal customer or option.
Yeah, I think AI is definitely making influencer marketing more efficient, especially around like the research, the creator discovery, content repurposing. I personally don't think that the real opportunity is with replacing creators. Influencer marketing works, I think, mostly because of trust. So AI can definitely, I think, help scale that process, but it doesn't create credibility. It's that person-to-person relationship that really makes influencer marketing work. So the best use of AI, I think, is supporting the human-led influencer programs, not removing the human parts that makes them work.
Yep, absolutely agree. I think it's just another tool in the tool belt, and it's another way to make it more efficient and effective, like John said.
You three did such a fabulous job answering the first 3 questions. Let's do one more together. So time to put on the prediction hat. Looking ahead 12 months, how do you see influencers integrating more deeply into the broader performance media ecosystem? So do you see things changing in a positive, negative way? Do you see them getting more deeply involved? Is it more of an impactful play on all campaigns across the board? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would say just continued integration into the paid ecosystem. I think just more content utilized for paid purposes is going to be a big, continue to be bigger part of it. I think that's the shift we're already seeing. I think influencer content performs great, both from the posts that they do, but then also taking it and integrating the paid behind it for the conversion aspect and driving those measurable results and lowering the cost of the partnership as a whole. So I would say that would be my prediction, is we'll continue in that direction. The importance of paid and the utilization of the data and the targeting available with those paid tactics is super powerful, and something that is a reliable piece that brands will continue to take advantage of.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I think that the interesting thing that we're already starting to see is that there's a movement towards using influencer content on CTV. And that's something I think we're going to continue to see, is that shift from the very polished TV ad that we're used to something that feels a bit more organic, the way that we're seeing it in the feed. I think that there still will be a place for both in the ecosystem, but I think we are increasingly starting to see that. It's emerging. I think that will continue. I think also we are still seeing this beginning groundswell around influencers taking the reins on their own businesses and expanding their touch points in these different brands. So it used to be just a paid partnership where you might even develop one product or a pair of earrings for your line, or they might design a chair or something. And we're moving a little bit away from that to actually owning that entire ecosystem. So they're building out agencies, they're taking on talent themselves, they're educating influencers on how to be better influencers. So I think that the people that have been successful in influencer marketing are starting to understand the value of their celebrity in a way that they hadn't really kind of optimized in the past. I think that's going to continue to grow, which is going to lead to more entrepreneurship, which I think is great for everyone.
Yeah, I look at it, I guess my prediction would be, I guess, expanding on like TikTok shop and like the Instagram shopping. I think social commerce is shortening the path from discovery to purchase for a lot of brands. So the creator isn't just driving awareness anymore. In many cases, I think they're now part of the sales path for brands. But at the same time, brands need to be ready for that operationally. So if their product page or offer or inventory or customer experience is weak, the influencer can create the demand, but then the brand's not going to be prepared to capture it.
Well, folks, we are out of time. We'll have to carry on this conversation next time. But first of all, let me say, phenomenal session. Chris, Ariel, John, Brad, great conversation today. Thank you all so much for sharing your expertise and knowledge in the subject of influencer marketing. Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed today's conversation as much as I did. Before we close out, I'd like to take a moment to invite you to join us for our next episode of the PDMI Take 20, hosted on June 3rd at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. I also want to remind you that PDMI's fall conference, PDMI West, is scheduled for October 19 to 21 in the wonderful city of San Diego. It's a beautiful hotel, the Intercontinental, right on the bay. Don't miss it. You got to be there. We can't wait to give you high fives and hugs when we see you there. Just let you know, we have an amazing room rate at $334 per night at the host hotel, the Intercontinental. That's roughly $200 discount per night. However, you must be a badge holder to take advantage of that discounted deal. So get your badges and your hotel rooms by visiting thepdmi.com. That's thepdmi.com. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us. Thanks again to our great panelists. We'll see you all next time. Make it a great day.